for the matter which is on the agenda. We did so. We retained Ted Steinke Services to do that. He has conducted his investigation and produced his report, which you all have a copy of, and he is here to answer any questions about it that you may have.
I guess we all have read copies, but public-wise, I guess it hasn't really been out. Would you mind kind of giving a briefing of what the three items you would look at,
Yes,
what you're based on your consideration, and
Sure.
what the decision came on?
There were two major questions that I was asked to take a look at. One was whether there was anything in the Colleyville City Charter or the personnel rules or state law that would prohibit an employee of the city of Colleyville, including the city manager, from owning property within the city for non-residential purposes. And the short answer is no, there is not. The city charter doesn't really address the issue at all, except to say that the city manager has to live within the city limits, but that can be waived by the council. The personnel rules are silent on the issue as well. State law really only talks about an ownership issue that comes into play when a city employee gets some kind of insider information that they use to their economic advantage. Then the second question I was asked was whether or not the city manager's purchase of a specific piece of property, which was located at 59 Piazza Lane, number 410, whether she learned of that through some kind of insider information. And I have determined that she did not. I have determined that that information came to her as a member of the general public. I spoke to the realtor who listed the property. Her name is Jennifer Liu. And she advised me that in November of 2010, she placed the townhouse on the market. They put a for sale sign in the yard, and it doesn't get much more public than that. In January of 2011, Jennifer Fadden contacted her, inquired about the property. They made a bid, but before the bid was accepted, the property was foreclosed and it went off the market. Then it was placed back on the market in March of 2011, and Jennifer Liu, the realtor, made another bid on the property, and that was ultimately accepted, and the property was purchased. But I can't find any evidence or indication at all of any kind of insider information being used by Jennifer Fadden. It went on the market on March the 25th. An offer was made in early April, and on May the 16th, according to the MLS listing, the property was purchased.
So could I or any other individual have, by some research, derived that same information publicly?
Absolutely, and there was a sign. Jennifer Liu has confirmed there was a sign placed in the yard. I tried to reach out to the firm in spring. They never returned my calls, but I'm led to believe that there was also a sign at that time.
Good report. I never doubted it. Unfortunately, this is just what you would call legally shielded character assassination. That's all it boils down to. I think you made a comment in here on the definition of substantial interest. I think it was something to that effect.
Yes, sir.
Could you give us some input on that?
The personnel rules basically say that a city employee cannot acquire a city employee may not, among other things, make any personal investment that might reasonably be expected to create a substantial conflict between the employee's private interest and duties to the city. Substantial conflict is not defined. Conflict is not defined. And I think I made a comment in my report, an observation, that the council might want to revisit it and tighten up that particular portion of the personnel rules. As it stands now, if I was an employee and looked at that, I wouldn't really know what it meant. And that might be something that y'all want to take a look at.
So because we're not 100,000 residents or more, our city employees or officials are not required to disclose real property?
That's correct. Section 145 of the Texas Local Government Code requires certain municipal officers, which include the mayor, the city council, city attorney, and the city manager, to file financial statements disclosing ownership in real property, shares of stock, and business interests. But it only applies to municipalities of a population of over 100,000, and y'all aren't quite there yet.
But that's
Although-
something optionally we could do as part of a city charter amendment, right? If we wanted to make it consistent so that like all of our public officials, whether they are elected officials or city officials, need to disclose.
I mean, you certainly could put that out to the public to do. I don't really see a reason for that. And, you know, there's people we've had both on city council, which I guess we have to disclose anyway with our Texas ethics.
I said we,
Your campaign finance
Right,
reports.
yeah,
sure.
anyway on that, so, but, you know, in terms of our employees, we've always had the highest level of competent, you know, trustworthy employees on that, so, you know, this is a peculiar interest where a person had a concern, he could have determined that by himself, by just some general research, but instead of doing that, threw it out to try to impugn the reputation of the city manager, city employees, and the city in itself. And it's something he could have just very well easily looked up himself. So we had to go through all this of using someone that just used public information to come up with that. So, you know, I don't see as this is an instance that causes any kind of alarm or any kind of, you know, it's just something more. They're going to be individuals that are going to try to, you know, put down a city versus trying to always build it up, and that's something we have to deal with. It's just a sad state that happens time.